We don't often hear from the Message Bible. We're so used to hearing the NIVs, particularly that first chapter of Genesis. So I thought we'd have it in the Message, just because it's not so familiar. It makes us think a little bit more. So I hope that was useful as we set the scene for this series. We've got 6 services that will have a theme around this book, planet-wise. Today, just an introduction, really, sort of a broad brushstroke in many ways of creation calls. Next week, Tabitha will be speaking on the theme of creation groaning. And then we'll be having an all-age service that will be focusing on changing our views. Whilst we're away in Amadown, if you're not going, please do go to St Paul's church building, where Jonathan Triffitt will be leading a service and reflecting on the land. And then John Crossman will be speaking on Jesus Saves, and Mark Crossman on New Creation. And we've got to be a bit careful. So you might think there are things I don't say today, and that's partly because we're going to be a bit careful, try not to stand on each other's toes as we go through this series. We had a video. Oh, why is that not working? Oh, tell you what, that's why it's not working. There you go. We on? Yeah, great. So we had a video set around this image, a pale blue dot. That's us. That's us. In a different way, many years ago now, I studied geology at Southampton University. I spent a lot of my time down here at the national, what was called the Southampton Oceanography Centre then, but now it's the National Oceanography Centre. And I spent time looking at interesting maps like those on the screen, lots of colour. What do all those colours mean? They're all different rock types. And yes, I was out in the field with a hard hat on, staring at cliffs, being told this is this and that's that, and trying to work out what these things were and what they meant. That was my world. And during that time at Southampton University, some of you know this story a little bit, is where I came to faith. 2 worlds collided. The world of the earth, and me studying that, and all that came with that. And also, someone said to me, "Who is Jesus?" Golly, hadn't thought about that before. And I had a big hang up as my thought processes started about creationism and evolution and all that sort of stuff. And someone said to me, in the end, someone from the Christian Union there, he said, "You're focusing on the wrong thing. You need to focus on who is Jesus. Put the other stuff aside for a little bit." It was a little bit hard to do because I was doing a degree, but in the overall picture, put those questions aside for now. I was in quite an amazing place, the best minds in their field. This is in, I was at university between 1999 and 2002. And one of my tutors was this chap. He wasn't actually a geologist, but he was one of 2 tutors that I had. And he was the head of paleoceanography. That means old oceanography. And paleoclimate, old climate. Paul Wilson, who's a great guy. And this is what we're talking now. We're talking 25 years plus. He had research out at the time saying this: carbon dioxide concentration in Earth's atmosphere has increased by around 35% since the start of the Industrial Revolution. Levels are now higher than at any time in the past 800,000 years. So it's 25 years ago. And they say it takes about 20 years for research to sort of hit the public sphere, if you like. And we know now, don't we, much about what's going on. But 15 years or so after I graduated, I ended up here, Trinity College in Bristol. This is where I trained to be a vicar. You can write to them and let them know whether they've done a good job or not. But it was a fabulous 2 years. And whilst I was there, I took a number of different modules, as you'd expect. But one of my modules was called Sustaining Earth. And we had the pleasure of this gentleman, Reverend Dr. Dave Bookless, come and visit and speak to us for one of our lectures. And he is as I've said already, the head of theology for Arusha, Christian environmental charity, works across the world. And in particular, he's written this book, Planet-Wise. Just so in case you're interested as well, he's also written a book called God Doesn't Do Waste, which was all about his family and the changes that they made to become greener, to become more sustainable. Very interesting book as well. So very much a family focus. And I was thinking, when at some point can we do something that will relate to this book, Planet-Wise? And Lent has offered itself in that way. So what will happen over the next 6 weeks is you might get a bit of a broad brush stroke, and you might decide that you want to buy this book and you can become a specialist in it. So I do recommend that perhaps at some point. But today's focus is creation calls. And what I hope we'll do is we'll get a bit of thought process around these three areas. What can we learn about God from creation? What can we learn about creation and its relationship with God and humanity? And what can we learn about being human and about our place within creation? But I'm going to show another video first, because I couldn't not show one of the BBC videos. Of course, they produce some amazing stuff around planet Earth, etc., etc. And most recently, Brian Cox has been involved in narrating some of those. So let's just watch this.
So here is the creation story, as told by science. In the beginning, there was an ocean of energy that drove a rapid expansion of space, known as inflation. There were ripples in the ocean. As inflation ended, the ocean of energy was converted into matter at the Big Bang. And the pattern of the ripples was imprinted into our universe as regions of slightly different density in the hydrogen and helium gas that formed shortly after the Big Bang. The denser regions of gas collapsed to form the first stars. And the first galaxies. And 9 billion years later, a new star formed in the Milky Way, the Sun. The star was joined by 8 planets, including Earth. And nearly 13.8 billion years after it all began, we emerged, blinking into the light.
It's truly outstanding, isn't it? When we reflect on how this has all happened. But there's always that question missing for me. Why? This is the how. And we've seen some great graphics, some great imagery, and there's amazing science being done. But what about the why? Well, somebody else have said already, what can we learn about God from creation? What is the nature of God? What can we learn about him from creation? Well, if we look at that biblical account, we see that God is beyond creation. It's beyond, outside of creation. I remember doing at Trinity College a whole essay about whether God could make something out of nothing. I've fallen off. Thank you, James. It's going to might be an ongoing problem. Can God make something out of nothing? Unfortunately, you'd be pleased to know I argued the case that he could. But that's the belief, that God is beyond creation. And it's actually God's love that has spurred creation to happen. Created because of God's love. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. There are many traditions around the world where God creates something out of something. But no, the Jewish God, the Christian God, creates something out of nothing. That is our understanding of the nature of God. We also, when we're looking at the nature of God, we can see God being revealed as we go out and look in creation. Paul says this in Romans, "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse." God is revealed within creation. And the nature of God is that he is committed to creation. These words from Psalm 36. "Your love, Lord, reaches to the heavens, your faithfulness to the skies. Your righteousness is like the highest mountains, your justice like the great deep. You, Lord, preserve both people and animals." There are some people that would say that God has abandoned us. But the Christian faith would say no. In fact, we see that, don't we, in the person of Jesus. God has not abandoned us. So the nature of God is that he's committed to us and to creation. In fact, it was a quote of Stephen Hawkins, who said, "There's no evidence that God is interested in acting in our universe." But no, we know we have the hope of Jesus, that God is interested and acts in our universe. So there's something of the nature of God. What can we learn? God is beyond creation. God is revealed within creation. God is committed to creation. So next, what can we learn about creation and its relationship with God and humanity? Well, this is one of my favourite spots. Some of you might know it. I'm going to turn this way so I don't have to keep going round. This is a little tiny chapel. If anyone knows Llanthony Abbey, on the borders of Wales and England, Llanthony Abbey sits in this beautiful valley, and at the top of the valley is this little chapel, St Mary's Chapel in Capley Finn. For me, this is somewhere special. On the window there are some of the words of Psalm 121, which "I will lift up my eyes until the hills. From where cometh my help? It's a special spot. A spot when I need to escape, when I need to be with God, is somewhere that I go to and go off walking into those hills. Because creation is good. The nature of creation is, and the purpose is partly for it to be good. We had those words, didn't we, that Sandra read out right at the end of Genesis 1. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. The thing about creation is it is God's. Read these words from Psalm 24. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. For he founded it on the seas and established it on the waters. Creation is good. Creation is God's. And creation speaks of God. That's one of the reasons I love going up into the hills. But I reflect on John Bradshaw's words to us a few weeks ago when he was reflecting on the miracle of the fish, the fisherman and all the fish. And he reflected on his son who studied astrophysics and the photon coming from the star all that way away. Or was it from the cosmic microwave background? But either way, that photon coming all that way, 13.8 billion years across the universe, to land in the back of your eye. Just immense. It's almost impossible to get our heads round. But in the psalm, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the works of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. So what can we learn about creation, its relationship with God and humanity? Well, creation is good. That includes us, by the way. We might not always think that as we look out across the world, but that includes us. Creation is God's, it belongs to God, and creation speaks of God. So what about the nature and purpose of humanity? What can we learn about being human and about our place within creation? Well, we all know this chap, Chris Packham, probably now a national treasure, I should think. In 2014, he said this: Christianity doesn't help because it teaches that human beings have been given dominion over the earth. Well, we had those words just now, didn't we? We'll be reflecting those in a second. And what else doesn't help? As we look out across the world, to say that the largest Christian nation, or publicly at least, the largest Christian nation at the moment, I think we've got a president who's probably a climate change denier. I'm not saying he's alone. There'll be others as well. The largest Christian nation's got a leader who, I think, probably would be quite happy to have dominion over the earth. Doesn't help us. But Chris is wrong. So let's look at this. Humanity is part of creation. Then God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. We are part of that creation, and we are good. But we are called to be a part within creation. We've got a purpose. What is mankind that you are mindful of them? Being humans, that you care for them. You have made them little lower than angels and crowned them with glory and honor. You made them rulers over the works of your hands. You put everything under their feet. We are set aside for a purpose within creation. We are made rulers over everything. Whew. There lies responsibility. Because We should image God as servants. I had these words from the Message, but this is from the NIV. And this is what Chris Packham reflects as he reflects on these words. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the ground and over every living creature that moves around the ground." Moves on the ground. Subdue it. That's difficult, isn't it? Maybe for us to grapple with these words. But we are images of God as servant kings. I always love that bit. I think it's in John's Gospel when the ladies go to the tomb Easter Day. And who do they meet? They meet the gardener. How many gardeners have we got in the room? I know we've got some. Put up your hand if you're a gardener. My wife's a gardener when she gets a chance. Her mother is the most amazing gardener. And they tend the garden with compassion and care. In the Genesis account, I think it's in Genesis 2 actually, we reflect God as a gardener in the Garden of Eden. And we are to reflect that servant-hearted, compassionate form of looking after. Subdue is a strong word, I agree, and maybe there's something about translation there, but it really means to manage and look after what we have been given. And we've been past that responsibility as stewards of creation. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. That is what we should be doing. Tending this place, this home, with care and compassion. Before I finish, got some words from Stephen Cottrell, currently the head of the Church of England, the Archbishop of York. We used to say the damage being done was unimaginable. We can't ignore what we know about at the moment, what science is telling us. But now we don't need to imagine it. We can see the consequences of our misuse all around us, in flood and famine, in forest fires and poisoned air. We need to rediscover that ancient vocation to be good stewards of the earth. And the church, you, the body of Christ, must take a lead in calling the whole world, to think again and change its ways. So, creation calls, in summary, know that God created, is in control, and what he created is good, including us. Know that creation speaks of God's greatness and majesty, and that it is good. Know that humanity is central to God's purpose and created order, that we are good too, and that we have a purpose that can make a difference despite our failings. We can be part of the solution. We are sometimes described as the problem. I think there are some who would say that the earth would be better off without humanity. But we are to be part of the solution. So, mic sorted. Gives you a bit of a basic sort of theology as we go on through our Lent series, as we work our way through over the next few weeks. But as we do that as well, we need to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus. We're going to be hearing some tough things, I think, as we go through this series, particularly next week as we reflect on the fall. But we need to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, and therefore we're going to stand and sing, "Be Thou My Vision." So please do stand if you're able.